Welcome to Just Minding My Business Radio, where we are moving at the speed of God, learning what we didn't know we didn't know. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use.
Welcome, welcome. We are so glad to have everyone with us this evening. Hope everybody had a really good day. My name is Ruth, and we have our co-host, our host, Ida Crawford is also with us. And tonight we have with us really special guest. We always love it when we have husbands and wives together. That's very special.
Thank you.
Tonight we have Renard Turner and his wife, Chinette. And they are from Vanguard Ranch in Virginia. It is a sustainable and organic farm, which they started in 1995. Their quest was to live a more self-sufficient lifestyle and led them to move out of Washington, D.C. to rural Gordonsville, Virginia. They raise heirloom organic vegetables and herbs and raise a herd of meat goats, a specific type of goat, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
And their quest is for self-sufficiency. It is to promote a lifestyle choice. And they found that this was a really good way to escape many of the issues that affect African American communities concentrated in urban areas where they are forced to be dependent. And I like what he says, farming is an act of liberation. So welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Turner. So glad to have you with us.
Absolutely.
We're going to go from the beginning. I know that Ida has the opening question for you, which I'm sure is on everybody's mind.
Wow. I am amazed and I am honored to meet you. And also, I know Ruth gave a little bit about why you made the choices that you made, but what was the determining factor that said, I'm going to do this?
That's a very good question. And I think that the best way to approach this is to say that the both of us in our 20s, when we were living in Washington, D.C., we're living near DuPont Circle in our first apartment. And then we moved over to Southeast near Mary McLeod Bethune Park and Eastern Market. And, while we were there was a lot going on in the 70s, early 71, 72. A lot of unrest in the African American community, a lot of political confusion. And I, in particular, was politically active and did not like the things that I was seeing or the way that my fellow brothers and sisters were being treated. And after reasoning through it, it came to my mind that the only way to really escape this was to become self-sufficient. So this whole thing is really in response to not being happy with the predicament that I found people who look like me living under conditions that were just not acceptable to me. And the politics of it all, I figured the only reason, if you break it down, the reason that I was doing everything that I did was to make money. And every dime that I made, I gave to somebody who did not look like me to provide me with goods and services. I saw no way out of that continuum as long as I continued to be dependent. So to me, I just was able to look through it and say, if I ever want to be a free African man in this country, I must provide goods and services for myself. Therefore, I must become self-sufficient, or else I'm going to be on this treadmill for the rest of my life.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well, on that note, can you tell us a bit, when you started out, you found the land. Did you consider yourself a farmer at first, or were you part of what I've heard of late about homesteading? How did you see yourselves?
In the beginning, we both worked in cities still. Because we came here without any real farming background or experience. Now, a little bit about myself. I had lived in California, and in my early high school years, I was a agricultural science and engineering student, and I was in the Future Farmers of America. So I had that bit of a background, and I had interest in it. But I'm from a military family. We both are from military families, so we lived all around the world.
Okay.
We landed in D.C. We kind of eloped and went to D.C. in our youthful 20s to start a life of our own.
Right.
Didn't like what we found there. Didn't really like the whole city vibe. We became part of the Back to the Land movement. We read things like Mother Earth News, Mother Jones, Backwoods Country Living, organic gardening, and those things motivated us to seek a different lifestyle choice. So now to say we came here and we both kept jobs in a city. In fact, Chinette would get up at 4:30 in the morning and we would drive to Fredericksburg, and she would get on a bus and ride for an hour to her job in downtown D.C. She did that for what? How long did you do that? A year? 6 months?
Couple months.
She did that for the first 6 months, I think, when we moved down here, just so we could keep an income stream. So the town in which we lived was called Mineral, Virginia. And we came to Mineral actually as part of a group of Afrocentric people from Washington, D.C. You might have heard of an organization called Nation House. And they have an independent black school called Watota Shule. It's still in existence. And we purchased collectively 208 acres of land with the idea of starting a self-sufficient Afrocentric community. Well, the reality is that was back in 1977. Nobody came. So my wife and I lived on that property for like 15 years by ourselves.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we got tired of that because nobody was there to help us do the things that, we needed to do. So we were like from Capitol Hill in a townhouse near Eastern Market to 208 acres in the wilderness. And our closest neighbor happened to be an older black farm couple, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Morris. They were about a quarter of a mile from where we were living in a single wide trailer. We purchased a single wide trailer. We never lived in one, knew nothing about them. We passed by them on Route 1. On our way to camp out on the land one weekend, we stopped in. They were having a sale. We found out it was cheaper to buy that than it was to pay rent in our apartment on the townhouse. And so we said, you know what? Let's just change this dynamic right now, because it's really all about the money.
Right.
We kept giving it away. I always say, like you work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's 5 days a week. And there's always 5 different people who don't look like me with their hand out to take all of that by Saturday.
And you got that right.
So it's like I can never keep any of my doggone money. And I'll tell you what was a pivotal thing. Our landlady, she was nice. She owned several townhouses on Capitol Hill. And she came by, very pleasant, and she asked us if we wanted to join her and her husband on a cruise on their like 36-foot sailboat to some island in the Caribbean, the Bahamas or Antigua or whatever. And I'm like, what? Is she serious? How are we going to go cruising for 3 weeks when I got to pay her rent? And then I just, we just got a calculator, I was always able to think quickly. So I'm like, okay, at that time we were paying, the rent was like 300 and something.
No, it was 500.
Was 500? Okay, Chinette says it was 500 a month. So I'm sure she's right. But still, for an apartment on Capitol Hill, that was cheap, relatively speaking.
Yes.
But if you're paying 500 a month, you're paying 6,000 a year.
Right.
5 times 12 is 6,000. 500 times 12 is 6,000. So if you stay there for 5 years, you paid her $30,000.
Right.
So that's why she can go cruising and I can't.
There you go.
Because I'm working for her. And not only was I working for her, I was working for the light company, the electric company. I was working for the bank who had the mortgage or had the car note. And we're working for the people who grew our food. So I'm like, only thing I'm doing here is getting up to go to work for somebody else every damn day. This doesn't work for me. So in order to really break that cycle, I felt that my God wanted me to be a free man.
Okay.
So I asked myself, which came first, the supermarket or man? And man came before the supermarket. So obviously we didn't need a supermarket to live. We just got used to the convenience. So I always say a comfortable slave never riots. So we find ourselves in this predicament that we're in now because as a people, and particularly our men, because they should be shouldering the burden of this in terms of the work that needs to be done with the hand and working the land and so forth and so on. We've gotten away from that. We've lost our natural mind. So we're not building houses anymore. We're our bricklayers, our carpenters, our electricians, our plumbers, all of these crafts and skills that we need to have. A whole lot of us still talk about nation building and what we need to do. And you know what I tell all of them? You need to stop talking and you need to get busy, because all you're doing is talking. You're talking the same stuff now you were talking 40 years ago. Don't need that. Give me 5 good brothers with some skills and we can build every damn thing we need.
Okay. You're telling the truth.
Yes.
Everything we need, we can build. So this dependency is what's keeping us subservient to, and we just had the 400-year celebration of bringing enslaved Africans here historically, which that's not correct anyway, but anyway, that's another discussion. But it's being recognized now. So
yes, there's some movement of
how much progress have we really made if we're still dependent on someone who doesn't look like us for everything we need? Food, clothing, and shelter are basic necessities. We don't control them. There's no freedom under those circumstances. And I don't care what religion you are, what dialect you speak, or where your parents came from. Indigenous Aboriginal people understand that better than modern men. So my acronym for modern, and I've been writing this book, but my acronym for modern is mostly overly dependent, economically repressed Negroes.
Well, you can't argue with that, because one of the things that we lost. I'm sorry, Ida.
Go ahead. I'm just
one of the things that we lost, and this is what one of the things that intrigued me when I found out that you had a farm, that you are actually a productive farmer. You're not just talking about it.
No.
There was a time, even in my childhood, when everybody that I knew somebody who had land down south.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's true.
And then everybody during the 50s and 60s decided that they didn't want to go to south anymore. By the 70s and 80s, they had either lost the land to taxes, literally given it away to developers. And now we are two things. We're not looking for land to farm, to call our own.
Right.
We're looking for mortgages to pay, so we can have this great big McMansion that we can't afford.
Yeah.
And we're not looking for land. We're not looking and thinking, well, the whole thing that I find interesting is the whole tiny house movement. And the fact that people are saying, I want to get out of this mess. I don't want the mortgages. If I have to live by candlelight, I'll do that before I pay $1,000 to $3,000 a year to a gas and electric company. It's gotten to the point where it's so funny. We're turning back. The cycle is turning back.
Yes.
You are a leader in this. You know what it's like to go to the land and say, oh, well, I'm sick of this mess. I'm going to go back and do what humans are supposed to do. That was our original purpose. We were supposed to take care of the land. That was our original job. Take care of the land. And
we're still stewards.
We're absolutely stewards.
We're here for a short period of time, and we are stewards of the land. So many African Americans in particular are very fond of espousing a particular religious belief. And I challenge all of them. I am a nonpartisan challenger when it comes to thinking. If you have a congregation that's paying tithes and giving money away every Saturday or Sunday or whatever day of the week you proclaim as your holy day, and that person who's standing up in front of that congregation is not saying to them, we need to work on liberating ourselves and becoming free. We need to be able to take care of our basic life necessities of food, clothing, and shelter. I'm not hearing that discussion in any of these buildings that I've entered. And I've entered several of them who've asked me to come and speak and so forth and so on. But I think they're all missing the point, because here's what they do. They collect that money. They find some pet cause that they want to espouse. And they spend a lot of it, on clothes and picnicking and a bunch of other stuff. Nothing to liberate the people. So, I always remember one statement. My grandmother was a Sunday school teacher, but I remember her saying, God bless the child that has his own.
That's right.
I remember that.
Yes.
And that's what I live by. So, we're not totally off grid, but we are heading off grid. We're going to be off grid. We do live in a passive solar house that we designed, and, we had it built for us. So we did have to go the mortgage route, but we're almost finished. But, mortgage is French for the March of Death. That's what it literally means, March of Death. That's what they say a person is mort, a la mort, like a mortician,
You're right. Mort.
Mort is death. A mortgage is the March of Death.
Wow.
How about that?
Everybody is hooked onto this stuff, and I'm wondering, when will people begin to think outside of the box? You see, we have become so much like the other folks that we just want to be just like them, but just a little bit better so we can be comfortable. Just let us be comfortable and we'll be no problem to anybody. That's not true. These children coming up now, I don't know what kind of a world they're going to have, because there's a lot of problems and not enough people really working on the solutions. We need to, and I don't really think you're going backwards when you return to the land. I think you're going forward towards liberation. It's not a backwards move at all.
No.
Yes.
I kind of agree with that. Yeah, that's what we need. We're desperate to have our own. We're desperate. Most of us, if we're thinking at all, we're desperate to have our own. And this society is pushing us towards that.
Yes.
If, like you said, you're thinking. If you're thinking, you're saying,
what's the problem?
Yeah,
Well, the problem is you can't keep the money you make.
That's the
That's
problem.
really at the root of this. You cannot keep the money you make. I don't care. The more money you make, the more expensive things you purchase, because that's our reward. Oh, man, I can't wait to make $120,000 and I'm going to go buy a $65,000 car and $600 shoes and go on this cruise and buy some fancy clothes. I'm like, no, man, get you some solar panels. Get you 10 acres of land. Get you a pickup truck. Get you a tractor. Get you some tools so that you can now create heritable wealth for your family for generations to come. We have no heritable wealth. We all start from zero because generations before us, it's not all their fault.
No.
But there was a time when they couldn't do anything. But since that time, I fault mostly the brothers because they lost their natural mind and they're not trying to do anything but be comfortable. And for me, if a brother comes out here and I'm working, he's going to have to get busy with me, or he's going to have to go, because he's not wasting my time. I'm not stopping for no jive talk. I don't care what football team's playing. I don't have a team. I don't care what cruise you're going on. I'm not going. It's not going to help me liberate myself. I don't care what kind of car you drive or what kind of rims or how much they cost. Don't care. I don't want expensive booze to drink. None of that. I got work to do, and the work of liberation takes all of my time and energy, but it's very rewarding because where we're sitting now, we have no visible neighbors, and it's a quarter of a mile to my drive. I got 8 dogs out there. They're going to let me know if you're coming, and I can handle my business from a distance. Nobody's going to bother me, and I can grow food, and I got 2 wood stoves, and I can stay warm, and soon we'll be debt-free and independent and off-grid. And that's about as free as you can be and look like me in North America. That's
awesome.
Only because we spent 40 years on this path now, and I've been blessed with, I've been married 46 years to Chinette. We were in our 20s.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
But we've been on the same spiritual path all of this time.
That's fabulous.
And we've come home from work and had to drop that bucket down in the well when the power was out.
Oh, yeah.
And that first trailer we lived in, it was so cold in the winter. See, we were only used to the city now. We came from a townhouse apartment on Capitol Hill. We lived at 906 A Street Southeast. If you know where that is, that house is still there, I'm sure. Okay. And we left from there to the first 208 acres. And it was so dark, we looked at each other like, wow. No sidewalks, no street lights.
No lights.
No 7-Eleven, no nothing.
No Dunkin' Donuts to run to.
Nothing. Nothing.
Wow.
And we've been so broke out there, honest to God truth, because we had no family around. We'd be down to like what, $6?
Yeah.
$6, and had ball tires on the car. I had to drive 30, 40 miles to work one way. hoped the car would get us there. And the heater broke in the car one winter. It was an old 62 Chevrolet. Bought it for $250. Transmission went out. So what we did, we got a repair manual, went to a junkyard, bought a transmission for $75, rented a bay for $10, and we dropped that old transmission out, put the other transmission in, and drove our hindparts home. And neither one of us had ever done it before.
Wow. I know that's right. You never know what you can do until you're pushed.
Yeah. But we were very much pushed, and that's why we're still above the ground and standing. We went through a lot of trials and tribulations, so we're stronger now than we've ever been, but we're older and we're wiser too. So we know what we're doing, and we are sustainable and organic. We grow really good food. I raise the meat goats largely because they help us to keep the land open. And I know that many West Africans, goat is a common thing for them to eat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they do like it, although most of our customers aren't from there. We have a food truck, and we actually take our mobile restaurant and do business ourselves. Again, that's to keep our own returns on our own investment. Right. Selling to the middleman doesn't help me.
Right. So talk a little bit about that.
I only sell my goat on a plate.
Okay.
All right.
So what type of goats do you have? I mean, you said so many things, and I know Ida probably has questions.
No, I'm just like.
That's okay. We actually just now starting the process of, we've created our own strain of meat goat. It's called the Bangus. And the Bangus is an acronym for the best all-natural goat in the United States. And I just talked to guys today about starting the process of trademarking that name, so that I hope to be, I will be the first African-American livestock producer who's going to trademark and start a registry of their own breed in this country. And hopefully I'll be able to reach other farmers who look like me, who want to actually do something similar, because again, we don't own anything here. It's 400 years later, and we're still doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm so glad we got out of D.C., because if I stayed there, I probably would be dead, because I, was politically active and outspoken, and it would not have been easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
It just would not have been easy. So, it was also necessary to get out of an oppressive environment so that I could be a free black man. You see, because the hypertension that many of us suffer, I say white people are the leading cause of hypertension.
Okay.
So you're not going to ever get off that pill as long as they're controlling everything in your life, and you got to skin it and grin it and do stuff you don't want to do on a daily basis.
Yeah, true that.
That will take your pressure up.
Yes. Well, I think
it's not about hating anybody. It's about loving yourself. This is not about hating white people. It's about loving yourself and being free, because they are in a space where they can be free and exercise that white privilege. Generally, we are not.
No.
Their children don't start off from zero. They inherit businesses. They inherit land. My neighbor, he's the fourth generation on his farm.
Mm-hmm.
So his great-great-grandfather owned it. So his grandson is already got, a herd of cattle to inherit. He's already got a house he doesn't have to build. He can just move in. That's wealth. The reason we're not inheriting wealth is because we're not purchasing land. This whole country was built on the backs of land. So it's funny that we understand slavery, but not the value of land.
Yeah.
You see?
Well, I think that's one of those things that they've kept under the rug until recently, until people started thinking, and they're paying attention to the fact that people are buying land like nobody's business. And they're searching for land. They're searching for land. If they had to put their little tiny house in their grandparents' backyard until they can find land. And when they do, they're finding some incredible land. There's land out there to be had.
There's land. And the real truth, sisters, is you can buy land for the same amount of money you pay on a car note. So I know for a fact that there's brothers out there paying a high car note, and if they cut that car note in half and drove a Hyundai or whatever, or a used car, they could have the car and some land.
Yeah.
But because their minds aren't there, they're not thinking like that. The only thing they want is more money so they can go spend it. What they're going to do with it?
That's right.
Go spend it. If they get paid on Friday, they'll be broke on Monday, and they won't be late for work 3 days in a row because they're scared.
The way to live.
They're scared.
You're speaking the truth.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I have been there. I'm only speaking from experience. I have been in those situations. I worked at George Washington University Hospital. I worked in a lot of different places when I was there. So I have a medical background for 25 years at University of Virginia Hospital as well. But wherever I work, I was always acutely aware of the fact that if you're a thinking black man, it's an uncomfortable circumstance for you.
Yes.
Because people always are going to look at you and assume that they are inherently more intelligent than you are to begin with, which is not the case.
I agree with that.
Then they would also look at you and expect you to assume a subservient position all of the time. I had white people walk by me at work and snap their fingers, and I didn't move. So the next morning, I get called in by the supervisor, who said that, I worked in medical capacity in an intensive care unit, and the charge nurse reported me to the supervisor because I didn't respond to her command. And he had the nerve and the audacity to bring me in the office and say, well, Renard, I have a complaint. I need to, go over this with you. And I said, well, what is it? And he told me, and I said, well, now, are you interested in hearing my version, or have you already come to a conclusion? I said, I just need to know, because if you're going to listen to me, that's one thing. But if you're not, then I'm just going to go to employee grievance and write you up. Because he's like, I think I'm going to have to write you up. I say, bring 2 pieces of paper, because I'm going to write you up, because you haven't even heard what I have to say, nor did you ask me.
That's right.
Where the hell do you get off? So my father didn't raise me to have fear, and I don't have it. And my father's still alive at 94, and I'm thankful that he raised me not to be fearful of any other man.
Okay.
So this particular person who snapped her finger at me was half my age, a white female, who didn't like men to begin with. But I'm not a dog. You don't snap your finger and walk by me and think I'm going to jump up and follow you like some damn puppy. Mm-hmm. But that was the mentality that she had. And in her mind, the appropriate response for me was to say, yes, master, what do you want me to do? Mm-hmm. And that didn't happen. And nor will it ever happen. Right. That's why we're out here alone.
Okay.
They come out here, they're lost. And I'm going to ask them, can I help you? Because you must be lost.
Right. Let me ask you, what is your suggestion for people who are thinking, and they can be any age. They may not be 20. They may be in their 50s. They may be in their 60s. They may be in their 80s, but they've got good health.
It doesn't matter, right?
How would you suggest that they start to change the path of their lives so that they can, I guess it's really getting back to the land, because however old you are, we, like you said, we have all these middlemen. We have no control over our food, what's in it, where it's planted, who's handling it, and it's become a real health issue for everybody.
It's mostly not food anymore. So, but to answer your question, sister, I would say the first thing to do is, you just take a piece of paper and you write up your monthly expenses. And then you ask yourself, how much of that is giving me any return on my investment? And if the answer is zero, like if you're just paying rent and you're not ever going to own the place, okay, so you're just going to keep paying rent forever. If, you're just paying that car note forever and, you're just giving money away forever, well, good luck. You're not going to make any progress. You're going to be there 5 years from now, because nobody's ever going to pay you enough at work to break that cycle.
Mm-hmm. Let's call it just over broke job.
Just over broke, right? Yeah. I was a guy named Columbus Pollard. He was with Primerica Financial Services, and I remember going to a meeting one time, and he made that analogy. He said, everybody has a job. That means jump out of bed on the journey of the broke to be just over broke. And I never forgot that.
Yes, I never forgot that either. Yeah.
But you see, but here's the thing. But even though we know this, it takes strong-willed people to really break those ties. We are connected to the system by an umbilical cord because we are as dependent as a baby. Dependency is the curse. You can never break that curse unless you become a producer of goods and services for yourself. If I don't cut wood and get wood in before winter, the two of us will be cold. That's on me to make sure that gets done. I'm not going to pick up the phone and call somebody to help me do it. I'm not going to wait on 6 homies to come volunteer. That's not going to happen. It's a great concept, but in some ways, I think that Black folks in particular have developed this herd mentality. It's like we all got to do this together to make a change. to hell with that. That's not the truth. You need to get up and do your own thing, because God bless the child that has his own. You got to be self-motivated to make this work. But there's no reason we can't build our own house and make it without a mortgage. There's a lot happening in alternative architecture and construction these days to make houses very affordable. There are good options. The tiny house that you mentioned, Ruth,
Yes.
that's a perfect option for people.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, my goodness, you know, I've seen some that are decked out like, you know, mini condos, you know, but myself, I would just build it because, you know, I know how to build. Right. So it's even better if you can build your own.
That's right. And that's the important thing, is that we learn these skills and that we start teaching young people. Yeah. Right. Again, that thing, when I was growing up, folks went down to the farm. They had to learn how to do X, Y, and Z. They knew how to build. And I can remember my grandmother and even my uncles saying to me, every man needs to know how to cook, clean, sew, chop wood, and do whatever else he needs to do in order to make sure that the house is complete and that he can take care of himself and help someone else. You know what? I know you've been talking. I wanted to hear a little from your wife.
Yes.
She's a little more introverted, so you have to pull it out of her.
Oh, I could tell she was being very quiet. But no, it's just so fabulous having the two of you together. So what has your experience been? What is it that you love about what you're doing?
I just enjoyed the being with trees and everything. And then with the goats, I can spend more time with the goats. And then the dogs, and also I love being able to have a nice garden and grow everything that we eat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have anything else that you do? Well, talk to us about the goats, because I know it's a special type of goat, and I know some people get very attached to their goats. I have a friend in Georgia who has goats, and I always ask her, do you name them? Because she just had, one was just born last spring. She had one, a baby was born. So how do you feel about that? Just the whole issue of being able to see life develop and be born on a fairly regular basis. I know you give them up because they're meat, but still.
Yeah, I have some that I do name, you know, because we've had one that was a bottle baby, so they kind of follow you around just like a dog. But I don't have them to where they can come in the house and nothing like that. Some people go to the extreme and let them come in the house.
Yeah, that's good.
But the goats that we have, they're called myotonics, or stiff leg goats, because they can, if you clap your hand or run up to them, you can startle them, but they get right back up. It doesn't.
Oh, okay. See, there are things that we don't know.
There's something called fainting goats. But
they call them fainting goats also.
Oh, okay. So, who makes all the recipes for all that lovely food that you put on your truck?
When his mom lived with us, she was our taster, so she would come up with, we make the recipe for the curry goat and the burgers. So we have a standard recipe, and it works. Everybody loves it.
Everybody loves it.
Okay, I've seen the pictures. People happy.
And we do something very different with ours, and just so that so these goats are all naturally raised on forage. They're not grain fed, and they're not having chemicals or hormones, additives, or anything. But when we make our curry, we have it all deboned, so there's no bone, there's no gristle, and then it's slow cooked, and with organic herbs and spices. And some years we even grow, the onions and the peppers and the shallots and everything that we put in there. Yeah. So it's really a homegrown type of a product.
Oh, that sounds fabulous. So if somebody wanted to come and visit you when you're doing that, how could people get in touch with you?
Website and email, easiest thing to do. I definitely will check that every day. Yeah. It's Vanguard Ranch Natural Gourmet on the web, and Vanguard Ranch at gmail.com. Right. Both of those work very well. And we'll have a couple of food festivals during the year. We also built a stage on our farm for music festivals. So if you go to Facebook and you look up Crossroads Music and Food Festivals, you'll see for what we've done for the last 4 years. So I actually built the stage from cedars I cut down from the farm, took it to the sawmill, had them cut into timbers, and spec'd it out, engineered it, got some guys to help me, and we built this solid cedar stage that's quite nice.
Oh.
So we've had up to 500 people out here for music events, and that is really an adjunct to the farm, because the reason for that was to drive more sales of our goat burgers and our curry goat and other things that we make. So by bringing people here for music, and we also feed them, and I would get beer from a craft brewery near me, or wine from a vineyard that we have developed relationship with.
Yeah.
So we're doing those type of things, and we'll do some more really come spring. One of the projects that we're working on is we're going to have what's called the first annual African American Traditional Music Festival here, where we're going to deal with like acoustic blues. I mean, blues and what they call seculars and slave hollers. And because there's a traditional music that we have also created that is getting lost.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to have a very good friend named Mr. Corey Harris, who's one of the best blues guitarists on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And he lived here with us on the farm for a while. He's traveling around the world. He opened up for people like B.B. King and Taj Mahal. So that's the caliber that we're talking about. Kev Mo and that type of stuff. We're talking real pros. So we're going to hope to have a real traditional blues music festival here once a year, where we feature our own homegrown greens and sweet potatoes and curry goat and goat burgers and chicken kebabs and vegetarian entrees, something for everybody, and get the folks out here to actually have some fellowship on a level. And also because we want them to see that it's possible to live in a different way. Okay. We're stuck on concrete. And I have a theory that concrete deadens your spirit because it kills the vibe. You have to touch the earth to be grounded. And all that concrete and steel makes you numb. And people are becoming hard. They're becoming too hard because they're becoming denatured in their spirit. But out here, the greenery, the trees, the animals, the birds, everything around you reminds you that everything is greater than us. And we are servants. We're just servants. Our job is to leave this place better than we found it. Absolutely. So the blessing for us is that, we get to do this. And I mean, we're sore. I'm sore right now, but I'm going to still do work tomorrow. It doesn't matter. Wow. Freedom is not free. And it's not something anyone else can give you. So this is one thing that really was an epiphany to me. I grew up, I was born in 52. So I'll be 67 in November. So I've lived through a lot and still going to live through more. But all of my life, I remember seeing black people marching and going to jail and getting hosed and getting bit and getting shot and beat and choked to death and all of that. And it's supposed to be better. I don't think it's any better because we're still in the same relative position that we were in my father's time and in my grandfather's time, because we've left the land, we've lost our natural mind, and most of us can't do anything for ourselves. So ask yourself, what happens if the electricity goes out where you live?
We got candles. So we got candles everywhere.
That's fine.
I'm from the South.
That's good. That's good.
From the South. My parents are from Virginia, as a matter of fact. So they know about the land and all that kind of stuff. And I was raised in Baltimore, but I moved to Pennsylvania. And we don't have 200 acres of land, but I got enough land to have a garden and grow my stuff. And I'm around other people that do the same. Like I get fresh eggs, and I didn't even realize eggs are not white. That fresh eggs that I get are blue, green, light brown. They like all different colors, but they're not white.
That's because of the breed of chicken. They're coming from a breed of chicken called an Araucana, which is a South American breed of chicken. They call them the Easter egg layers. And that particular breed of chicken lays those eggs in different colors.
Wow. Didn't know that.
See, I didn't even know that. And I'm eating these eggs every day. But
they come from an Araucana chicken. That's a specific breed of chicken. But there are chickens who lay different colors too. But that's a very good thing. But most of our people aren't even in a situation like that. So but I always say, what happens if it goes out for a week? You see, do you remember back when they had that power outage in New York?
Yes, I was there.
Okay, yeah, well, then you know exactly. Well, it's going to happen again.
Oh, of course it will.
It's going to happen again because the infrastructure is not robust enough to put up with the demand that
we have. You're right about that.
We basically have either got to learn to live closer to the earth and use less resources, or we're going to burn the planet out and everyone's going to suffer. So I'm of the mindset that we're going to burn the planet out, and it's not going to be too much longer.
Yes.
I hate to see so many of us in a bad situation, but at the same time, you cannot eat your Escalade. But that's where many of us are.
Yeah, you can't.
True.
You need to have something.
They cannot eat their Escalades, and that Hennessy or Cavassier or whatever, that's not going to keep your butt alive.
No, it's not. Because I know how to can. I do can.
Good.
Yeah,
that is perfect.
Right.
So, and like my neighbors, we got farms all around here. I'm in Pennsylvania.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. You're in a better situation than most.
Yeah. Well,
there's a group on Facebook called Black Homesteaders Alliance.
Yes.
And I frequent there, almost on a daily basis because it's a way to interface with other Black folks who are in the process of transitioning or currently living very similar to where we are. There's some people out there who are already totally off grid and in their homes that, are creating their own energy. It's entirely possible to do this.
Well,
why are we so afraid to be responsible? You see, that's the one word. Why are we so afraid to accept the ultimate responsibility of do for self? Because it's easier to be a comfortable slave.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
a heavy.
It's much easier to be a comfortable slave.
But it's true.
It's very true.
That's
So you can be a slave for 20, 30, 40 years. It doesn't matter. When you're gone, nobody's going to remember you were even here, except your close friends, But some of these other folks, what they're building, their great, 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 great grandchildren are going to inherit that land. The house is paid for. Fences are in. They're putting in infrastructures. They're putting in wells. They're putting in greenhouses. They're putting in They're putting in all these redundant systems so that for the generations to come, their family's free.
right.
Well, that's how I found you. I found you because I was looking around the tiny house movement.
Good for
I came
you.
across something else that talked about Black homesteaders, and then I found you. And I said, oh, wait a minute, this is the real deal. People are really doing this, and nobody knows about it. That's why I wanted you to come on the air.
Yeah.
And we'd like to have you back for other sessions. Where we could get to the nitty-gritty and maybe come visit you on the farm and do some footage.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know we'll have to work, but we'll come anyway and footage and see what it, and so people can see, because we also have a TV side to this. So be able to show people that it's possible. And like you said, what are we afraid of? Why are we afraid to take on the responsibility for ourselves? We're paying out all this money anyway.
Right.
And sometimes you pay out this money and good Lord, you're working and someone else absolutely comes and takes it right out of your hand. Why not struggle a little bit, put something into the land and get something that you can use, can it, preserve it, dry it, whatever.
Everything, all of that.
But it's yours. It's coming out of the land and it's coming out of your own sweat and energy.
Right.
I'm so glad that you have been able to step in this evening and share with us part of the journey.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
We love to share. And, I've been writing a book for about 5 years. And my mother and father used to live with us. They live in Austin, Texas now, but they lived here Mom lived with us like 15 years, I think.
Yeah.
She loves the country. They're both from Petersburg, Virginia. But, I started writing this book about 5 years ago. And my mother, she was quite fearful that I needed to be careful of what I said, or else somebody might want to take me out.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I can understand mother's love. And I'm like, Mom, I could appreciate what you're saying, but understand that I don't have a fear of that. Not that I would want that to be the case, but at the same time, the things that I have to say are important to me, and I will continue to say them. And I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
And that's the way it should.
I certainly have no fear of it. But you're so right, Ruth, that tiny house, think about it. If you have just think of 5 of your closest friends. If they add up all of the money that they spend in rent and mortgages in a month, I guarantee you it's probably close to $8,000-$10,000.
Yeah.
And for that kind of money, you could probably buy a couple 100 acres of land and put 4 or 5 tiny houses on it. Same money.
Yes.
Yes.
Same money, but you're liberating yourself immediately.
Mm.
So when we left, here's the truth for us. When we left, Chinette says it was $500 a month. I think it was like $300 and something, but you may be right.
No, it was 500.
Okay, she says $500. I'm not gonna argue. She's, she knows. So even it was $500 a month. But to buy that first single wide trailer that we bought brand new only cost us $169 a month.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a saving.
And it came fully furnished with the sofa and chairs and kitchen, even dishes in the cupboard.
Yeah.
Even dishes. It was $169.
It was poorly insulated.
It was poorly insulated. We were so green, we had no idea. So we thought that when you bought it, because that was like a car note. So we passed by, stopped in. They had a big sale. We said, oh, we're going to buy this. I was working at George Washington University Hospital. I went into the Employees Credit Union. I borrowed $1,500, $1,500. Put $1,000 down payment on the trailer. And then they moved it to this property in Virginia where we were park co-owners with this group from Black Star. That was costing us $69 a month to buy our share. So for, $169, call it 170 plus 70, it's like $240. Right. That was less than the rent. We had a house and land. Mm-hmm. So that was incentive enough for us. But look, we didn't know anything. We did not know that it was not going to be hooked up to electricity or water. So we drove back out there and flipped the switch and nothing came on. And see, we were city folks. And the man said, I said, well, I called him up. I said, the water doesn't work. And then you have to have a well and get it connected. And do you have a permit? And I'm like, I don't know any of this stuff. And so went down to the courthouse and we found out, to the planning division and all this paperwork we had to learn. But we learned how to do it all now. So we can advise other people who look like us exactly how to do this. Right. Not make mistakes. But now I can wire a well, I can wire a house, I can frame a house, I can hang drywall, I can paint, I can fix plumbing, I can drop a transmission, keep a tractor running, put in the gardens, raise beds, build a greenhouse, put up solar panels, build a solar panel. I've had to learn. Nobody taught me.
Yeah.
Nobody have so much to share.
That's awesome. That's good stuff, though.
Yes.
It is possible to be free.
Yeah.
But you got to get out of the city. I say city means concentrated in tiny yards. That's why when you enter the city, there's a sign that says you have entered the city limits.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be limited. You're gonna be limited.
The city limits.
Because one of the first things I noticed when I moved here, no police cars, no signs, none.
Yeah.
And you wake up in the morning and it's just birds.
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch the wildlife walking around. Sometimes I've got like 25 deer in the yard. It's like, wow, this is deer convention today.
That's a good thing.
I love it. And I had a boy, so I didn't want to raise my son.
Mm-hmm.
I just did not want to do it.
See, you were smart because, it hurts us because we had a family that stayed here with us for about a year.
Yeah. And
they had a son who was my shadow. He shadowed me on the farm. 6:30 in the morning, he would knock on my door. Mr. Turner, what are we going to do today? Full of life, full of enthusiasm, bright young man. I taught him how to drive the tractor. He could feed my dogs. We got livestock guardian dogs. He had no fear. He could do this. If I went away for a day or two, he would feed up and do everything. He would make deliveries with me to the local food hub and to organic food stores where I would deliver my produce. He would jump in the truck and come with me. They moved back to the city. And this July, somebody shot him dead at age 20, and he's gone. Another senseless death.
Wow.
Another senseless death.
I just did not want my son to get caught up in the city life.
The environment is very bad.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And it's, you can't blame the children all the time. It's like the analogy I make, if you were raised in a zoo and you only know those cages and a zoo life, somebody's going to come and throw you your allotted amount of food on a daily basis, but you're restricted in your movement.
Yeah.
You'll get your daily ration, but you can't really go too far. But you know what happens if you open those cages? Those animals are going to come back at night. because that's the only life they know.
You know, that's right. They're going to come
We're
back.
doing the same thing now, but those environments are infested with drugs. They're putting designer drugs out there for our youth, and particularly our young men are falling prey to these things, just like the Tuskegee experiments.
Yeah.
They're putting designer drugs out there to test the effect. And because a lot of these young men are hooked on being cool and being the peer pressure, they're falling for that crap.
Yeah.
And they're falling left and right, and they're becoming victims of the system. But it's the environment that they're living in. If you put them outside and give them space and let them touch the ground and get grounded and learn about nature and feel that spirituality, they will be very different.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's about
And they treat women differently too. Because women in the country are different. They're definitely different.
Yes.
And our young women are in the same situation. They are not being who they. If my grandmother was alive right now, she would be 100 and something, 20, 30 years old. She would just be horrified.
Yep.
What happened to young women. And because I know sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, what happened?
Yep.
No self-respect.
None.
And it's not about being a lady. It's about being a woman. It's about having.
I was.
And you know, it's just really sad. But you know what? It's about going back to the farm. It's about going back to the land.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you have shown leadership and courage, both you and your wife together. The fact that you've been on the same path together.
Oh, yeah.
Even spiritually on the same path. And it shows in your relationship. It shows in your faces.
Oh, yeah.
And I really hope to be able to bring your faces to our listening audience and take them down to the farm. Let them see what you do.
I'd be happy to do it.
Yes.
And give them some encouragement, because we need encouragement right now. People are suffering. We are suffering in a way. And like you're right, in the near future, if you don't know how to make a heater out of an old plant pot or make a stove out of some cinder blocks, you're in trouble. See, I stay on YouTube and I look at all this stuff that people do.
Well, it's the truth.
I'm storing it.
What do you do when your supermarket has empty shelves?
Right.
You know, a big storm comes up, people rush the store, and it's gone in a few hours. So what happens when they blockade and they're not going to bring it in for a week or two?
Exactly. And we've had that happen.
It's going to happen again.
I always stock. I stock. We got canned goods.
You got it.
I never run to the store to get milk and all that kind of stuff when it's snow.
Right.
I already got that.
Yeah.
I stock the whole time.
That's what you got to do.
And I know
you have a pantry.
Yes. Yeah.
But most of us don't have a pantry and can't make a biscuit from scratch if they had to.
Oh yeah, I make biscuits.
I can.
Me too.
I can definitely.
That's a test for me. I tell all the young men now, if that sister you're dealing with can't make a biscuit from scratch, keep it moving.
Yeah, I told my son, he's 23. I'm like, you're gonna have a tough time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Scratch. I'm not a microwave mama.
Oh no.
Box stuff. I cook from scratch, fresh peppers, fresh potatoes.
Yes, of course.
Kind of stuff. I love to cook and I love to garden. So
me too. Perfect.
Like
perfect.
I love all of that.
That's those things are blessings.
Yes.
It's therapeutic, to play in the dirt. I call it playing. It's just, it's just I don't know. It does something for my mind.
It does.
When you change your economy, when you begin to control your economy and your home becomes your bank, then it's no longer necessary to leave home to make bank. See, everybody works for money and they trade their time for money and they trade their money for goods and services. When you become the producer of those goods and services, you have more time and more money as a result because you get to keep more. So we can live well on much less. Than if we were still in our townhouse in Southeast Washington, D.C., where every time I stepped out the door, I was spending for something.
That's right. We all do that.
But here, I might not leave the farm all week, maybe for 2 weeks. Sometimes the only person I see in a week is Chinette, but I'm okay with that. You see, because I can have my tunnel vision and I can stay focused on what needs to be done. And, she works 3 days a week off the farm, but 4 days a week we're always together. So she's only been 24 hours, a little bit of insurance. But hopefully she's going to retire next year, kind of leaving it up to her. She got to decide what works for her. But and then when that happens, It doesn't matter because we have redundant systems in place, and we can replace that quite easily.
Right.
Okay.
You know, just from doing the things that we're doing.
Okay.
Wow. Well, we're going to have to do this again.
Yes.
I would love that.
I have tons more questions.
About
Good. Write them down and fire them. Shoot them to me. I'll be happy to answer.
Okay.
We're going to come and visit and
Sure.
in person, and make sure you keep us posted about the festival.
Yes.
Definitely will. And we're also we built another building, and I'm going to make like a guest dormitory there. I plumbed it for a toilet and put a hot water heater and everything in it. So it's going to be like a guest cottage. So we're going to set that up, and I'll let you know when that's ready to.
Okay.
All right.
Your first
Thank you
visitor.
so much. We appreciate
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It'll be a pleasure to have you. We'll leave the light on for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been a
Thank
great
you.
delight.
Thank you.
Peace and blessings and safe travels.
Yes.
Okay, you too.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, wow. That was nice.
That was lovely.
Yes, it was.
Word on the street says there's something new at Just Minding My Business Media. You've heard our podcast, Just Minding My Business Radio, that brings news and views you can use. That airs every Thursday at 6 p.m. on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and Spreaker. Well, now you can watch Just Minding My Business. That's right, Just Minding My Business Media now has a TV presence on Raven International TV Network, broadcast on Roku, Fire, and Apple TV. Your business, through Just Minding My Business Media, has exposure on internet radio, major social media platforms, and now TV, through Just Minding My Business dynamic digital marketing platform. Don't listen to the word on the street. Hear it for yourself. Visit jmmb.asistercircle.org to learn how you can take your business, your vision, to the next level.
Thank you to the amazing women of A Sister Circle Empowerment Network, ASCEN LLC, and our media partners. Let Just Minding My Business Media promote your business. For information, visit us at jmmb.asistercircle.org. That's jmmb.asistascircle.org. Voiceovers by RCH VoiceWorks, for when you want to be heard. Call 443-620-4115.
Thank you for tuning in to Just Minding My Business Radio. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
We hope you enjoyed the show and appreciate you stopping by. Many blessings to you and yours.